Do you like cats? Well, this video is sponsored by Battle Cats, a free-to-play tower defense game where you get to send an army of cats to do battle. You want cats? We got all the cats.
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens.
That's not even a cat, that's just a fucking Hatsune Miku character. You got Sumo Cat, you got Samurai Cat, you got Sadako Cat, and then you got Tights Cat. Who thought of this abomination? You've got to use the cats at your disposal to tackle the various stages. As stages progress, it can get pretty challenging, so careful thought needs to be put into your formation, what cats to use, whether your team comp is balanced, and most importantly, how many anime characters can you fit in. Cats can range from different strengths and rarities, and the variety here is absolutely insane. I even managed to get myself a JoJo cat. A freaking JoJo cat.
Dio! ほう、向かってくるのか。近づかなきゃ、てめえをぶちのめせないんだ。
Starting May 1st, they are also celebrating their 50 millionth download and are offering tons of free in-game rewards, limited edition stages, and the Superfest capsule set that has a high chance of collecting top-tier Uber Cats. So if you want to dive into the world of Battle Cats today, click the link in the description to download it on iOS or Android. And with that said, let's get on with the video. We all have our origin stories about how we came to discover anime and find out we love these animations that came from Japan. But I'm sure for many of you, anime isn't the only medium you've become a fan of and might not even be the only foreign medium you've come to love. For me, some of my fondest childhood memories growing up was whenever I'd go to my cousin's house and he'd put on different martial arts films that we would end up spending all night watching. Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Jet Li. I grew up in a lot of these OG Hong Kong martial arts flicks, and this love remained as we grew older, where he would continue to show me films like Kung Fu Hustle, Ong Bak, The Raid, Ip Man, Killzone SPL. So of course when I became the anime and manga fan that I did, my natural instincts was to see if there were any titles that were reminiscent to these types of movies. And through this search I discovered two series, Veritas and The Breaker. To this day, these are two of my favourite martial arts based manga that I've found. Not only was the art on par or greater than the best of any Shonen Jump action series you can find, but it damn near ticked every box I was looking for, from insane fights, the perfect underdog story, and a setting focused on the underground world of martial arts that was surprisingly far less common than I thought it would be in the world of anime. But there was something strange about them. While they looked like any other manga, I was reading from left to right, and these names didn't sound like any of the Japanese names my weeb mind had got so accustomed to, and it was then that I realized that these weren't manga at all. They were from Korea, and they were called manhwa, and through that I discovered that the Koreans had been popularizing this entirely new format called webcomics on this platform called Webtoons. Here was an entirely new world of stories and comics that I would have never discovered if I only cared about what was coming out of Japan, while still feeling very reminiscent to the stories found in anime, some of which were just as good. But it was then that I somberly realized that these stories weren't from Japan, and so there would be zero chance I would ever get to see any of them adapted into anime form, and given the chance to fully shine like many of the Japanese manga I had come to fall in love with. Or at least, that's what I thought, until now. Tower of God is airing this season, and it may well be the most important anime to come out in years, but it's not alone. This year it was announced that God of High School and Noblesse would both be getting anime adaptations too, and this was massive news. Not least because all three of these are Korean webcomics that found international distribution through Webtoons. To me, this is news that could spell a shift for the entire industry itself, but before we get into what these shows could mean for anime as a whole, what's all the hype around Tower of God anyway? This season, Tower of God has not only filled the heavy role of being one of the only shows that hasn't been indefinitely delayed, but is also coming in as a contender for the new hype shonen action series, and so far has done a pretty damn good job. The main premise revolves around this almighty tower that can apparently grant whatever wish or desire or something to people who can successfully climb it. Exactly what's at the top of the tower is left kind of vague, as it's only really there to give the characters some sort of motivation to ascend. As the story progresses, the ultimate goal of reaching the top of the tower becomes less and less important, because what really shines about the series is the world building, the fights, and the characters. The tower is less of a structure and more like an entire world in and of itself. Each floor has its own dynamics, rules, social structure, and sometimes even ecosystem. We are thrown headfirst into this massive world, but you're only ever shown one tiny bit bit at a time. There's no hand-holding where a character just immediately dumps the entire history of everything you need to know on your lap. You are left to discover the world with the protagonist. You hear bits about the history, the geography, the political structure, and piece by piece this slowly builds up your understanding of the tower as a whole, and as the pieces start connecting, it evolves into this grand story. You really get a sense just by watching the first few episodes that you're standing at the base of this enormous mountain and you're just seeing a tiny glimpse of the entire thing, and I love that feeling. The feeling that you're not just seeing this generic world being made up as the story progresses, but you're stepping into a pre-existing one with centuries of history and lore that was constructed before the story was even started. It's one of those series where you watch 2 episodes and you think, yeah, I could see this being a 300 episode kind of deal, and I feel a similar level of thought has been put into the power systems and fights because it's intrinsically tied to the mechanics of the world, and what really enables it to shine is the various tests on every floor. To ascend, participants have to pass various tests which can range from simple death battles to more elaborate mind games, but as we learn more about the power systems, the tactics behind passing a test becomes more intricate. There are always several layers behind every action taken, and this is especially true when it's constricted behind the rules of whatever test they are taking. The action in the anime might not be as flashy or well animated as something like a Ufotable or Bones adaptation, but I think the writing behind it more than makes up for it, and I think that's the same reason why, despite the early art of the webcomic being lackluster at times, it still manages to really engage you. Oh, and you know, there's also this bloke called Kevin Penking who did the soundtrack to Made in Abyss and Shield Hero who's doing the music here, and I mean, I guess he's kind of doing a good job or something. I don't know. I don't really know the guy or anything. Am I a mate or a friend?
You're a cunt, that's what you are.
I think he might be Australian. While this is a Korean webcomic, you can feel the influences of some of the best Shonen Jump action series because you get the same grand sense of world building like you do from something like One Piece, while the fights and tests are structured way more reminiscent to something like Hunter x Hunter. I knew it had potential to stand up with the Shonen competitors when I switched on an episode and after 5 minutes the episode ends. And then you look at your clock and you're like, wait, what the fuck do you mean that was 20 minutes? If there was a weak point, for me it lies with the main character because he suffers from a severe case of stupidly ignorant main protagonist syndrome. Wait a minute. Bam suffers from being that generic, naive, nice guy protagonist without the same charm you see in a lot of similar cases. A huge issue I had when trying to get invested in the webcomics was that he was just so much more boring compared to literally everyone around him. Because without spoiling, there are a lot of interesting characters with various compelling motivations to get good development over the course of the story, and compared to that, it was really hard for me to invest in Bam as a character and how the plot revolved around him. Thankfully, it does get better deeper in the story, but my god does it take a while. But you know what? All this is fine, because we all know Rak is the real main character anyway. All in all, I see Tower of God being a welcome addition to the shonen action genre, but my biggest worry is that this anime will barely scratch the surface of the full story. This isn't a quick, disposable one season kind of story. There are 400 plus chapters for a reason, and with the anime only confirmed for 13 episodes, it's hardly gonna make a dent. To put this in perspective, the webcomic is split into seasons. Season 1 is around 70 chapters, and that's basically just the prologue. Yes, the prologue. With 13 episodes, either a lot of things are going to be cut out, or we're going to have an anime that stops halfway through the start of this tale. For me, it didn't start to hit a stride until season 2. It took me a week to slog through season 1, and then season 2 hit, and I just casually read 100 chapters in a day. So take that as you will. If it does manage to reach some of its full potential though, do I think it's a series that could pave the way for a new era of webtoons anime? Absolutely. What Tower of God and the upcoming God of High School Noblesse represents is an evolution for anime, because it doesn't seem like this could be a one-time thing, but a continuing partnership between Crunchyroll and Webtoons. What this means is that Webtoons could be a new consistent platform where we find material for anime, and I think that's a big step for the medium. To be clear, there was already one Webtoons adaptation of Noblesse, but that was limited to a one-episode OVA and nothing close to the fully serialized adaptations we are getting now. And these weren't some no-name in-house studio adapting them either. Tower of God was being done by Telecom Animation Film, God of High School was being handled by Studio Mappa, and Production IG was doing Noblesse. This was massive. When it comes to foreign source material in anime, it's not an idea that's entirely alien, but from what I could find, these were limited to 2 basic categories. Either it was something from classic literature like The Count of Monte Cristo, Romeo and Juliet, Alice in Wonderland, and anything from World Masterpiece Theatre, or it was an addition to an already established pre-existing franchise like the Marvel Madhouse adaptations or a video game tie-in like Halo or Mass Effect. Getting an adaptation of an original story outside of Japan is almost unheard of. The closest thing I see is Chinese animation sometimes getting a Japanese broadcast, or series like Freezing and Radiant, which had authors from Korea and France respectively, but both at least had physical publications in Japan. Not only is Webtoons an an international platform, but compared to a medium like manga, webcomics is a very, very young medium, but has slowly been gaining insane popularity over the past decade. Tower of God itself garnered 4.5 billion views worldwide before its anime started airing, and what something like this shows is that there is a massive audience for anime-style content that isn't necessarily from Japanese manga or light novels. What interests me about webtoons as a platform is that it's a medium that was birthed in the digital age. I mean, it's one that's specifically designed to be read on smartphones and tablets with that one long unending page that you just vertically scroll down. So unlike manga, actually trying to read a webcomic on paper would be like, look at all this fucking paper. It's a platform that was designed for the age of the internet and has really embraced how modern content is made and how we consume our media, which is why I think it has such a big international appeal. On launch in 2014, it was merely a platform for an international audience to read officially translated Korean webcomics, but now has become a place for user-generated content like YouTube where anyone can publish their work on the site. And a big reason this excites me is because this opens up so many possibilities for stories from different cultural backgrounds. Don't get me wrong, anime is already diverse as hell, but most of the stories, unsurprisingly, find its roots from Japanese culture, and this can limit the types of stories and settings that we see. The entire reason I found Veritas and The Breaker in the first place was because it was surprisingly difficult to find good martial arts-based manga and anime. You'd think the crazy world of martial arts combined with the shonen battle formula is pretty much a match made in heaven, but there's only really a handful of titles to pick from, so it was hard to find exactly what I was looking for, yet it was exceedingly easy to find when it came to Korean and Chinese comics because there are so many. What I'm trying to say is part of the appeal I found from getting into webcomics, manhwa, or donghua is that it still felt like I was watching anime while being refreshing enough to not fall into some of the same cultural cliches we've gotten so used to, because hell, they all have their own cliches. To be clear, I don't expect webtoons to take over as the primary source of source material, but like how we saw the rise of light novel adaptations in the mid-2000s, international webcomics could become an additional avenue for anime adaptations because the audience is there and it's getting very, very popular. To me, webtoons isn't the perfect platform. I think the lack of an editorial backbone makes it a lot harder to find good titles, and the best on there still can't compete with the best of what we can find in manga just yet, but it's still a very young platform, and the fact that we are getting webtoons adaptations opens so many doors. Because this isn't just limited to webtoons either, there are plenty of other titles like Solo Leveling, which is another Korean webcomic outside of webtoons that is getting insanely popular, and if it ever got an anime adaptation, would probably do pretty damn well. What I want to end this video on is not to say you should hold out hope for a Breaker adaptation or that Solo Leveling is just a matter of time, but that we've come to a point in anime where the rules we once thought they worked by are starting to bend. Manhwa and manhwa are simply just the Korean and Chinese terms for all comic book storytelling, like manga is for Japanese comic books. But for us in the West, they are mainly what we refer to as very Japanese-inspired manga-like comics from those regions. This is why a lot of them are visually indistinguishable from manga, and why certain Western companies in the past, like Tokyopop, have sold Korean and Chinese comics as manga. You could even say that maybe the concept of anime and manga itself is just becoming a brand for us in the West. But who the fuck would actually say that?
I think it's only a matter of time before we get a breakout hit Chinese anime. I think it's only a matter of time before we get some kind of Korean manhwa adaptation.
With the addition of webtoons, anime has opened up a new avenue of source material to be adapted, and it's not based on any cultural or geological background, but simply stories that can gain an audience. Tower of God, I feel, is the first step towards this, and whether this is your kind of show or you think this is just another overhyped shonen flavor of the year, you should have your eyes peeled over the coming months over the impact this show has, along with God of High School when it starts next season. Because if they take off, which I very much think they have the potential to do so, we could be witnessing the start of a new era for anime. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that video. Thank you very much to BattleCats for sponsoring me today. If any of what I showed looked interesting to you, then click that link in the description to try it today. And with that said, thank you very much to Sisters10086, Zobmondo, Eliful, Basil, and everyone else on my Patreon for helping to support me for this month. You know, this is normally the point where I give some new updates about what's going on in my life, but what the fuck is there to say, right? I've been inside, all the events I've planned have been cancelled, so yeah, I've got nothing. So you know what, I'm just gonna leave it at that today and keep it short and sweet. So, until my next video, I've been Gigguk, and I'll see you all next time.